Hi, I'm Bill Singh again. Today I'd like to talk about science and the existence of God. Can God be proven scientifically or disproven scientifically? Uh, Lots of people will say that God cannot be proven scientifically and he can't be proven or disproven scientifically. And it's a very interesting debate, and I would say there is actually a lot of truth to that reality. Funny thing is, what we refer to most of the time when we say that God cannot be proven or disproven scientifically, we are specifically referring to most of the time, excuse me, the existence of the biblical God. What I can tell you, though, is that we can prove, beyond the shadow of a doubt, well, disprove rather, that certain other gods do not exist. For instance, let's take the gods of Greek and Roman mythology. Why can we prove that the gods of Greek and Roman mythology do not exist? Well, where do the gods of Greek and Roman mythology live? Supposedly on Mount Olympus. Well, let's climb to the top of Mount Olympus. Are you going to find the Greek and Roman gods there? Well, of course not. Why is that? They don't exist. It's pretty obvious, I think. That's one way. That's one example of how we can prove that other gods do not exist. The location of the Norse gods, the Viking gods, so to speak. I did a little bit of research on that, and they supposedly live in a place called Asgard, which I believe supposedly hovers above the earth or something like that. I read the description of where Asgard's supposed to be, and it's a very obscure. I don't fully understand the description myself, but it had a lot of what we know to be scientific inaccuracies leading up to the description and telling us where they are in relation to where we live. And because of that, we can say, well, if there's scientific fallacies there, we can just simply look at nature and say, well, they just simply don't exist. This goes against what we know and can observe. Well, very clearly, the Norse gods do not exist. And then I looked up the Hindu gods. Very hard to find a whole lot on the existence of where the location of where the Hindu gods live. They all live in different places, supposedly. But I did find, supposedly, Shiva, one of their main gods, supposedly lives on Mount, how you pronounce this here, Mount Kailasa in the Himalayas. So how do you disprove the existence of Shiva? Well, go to the top of Mount Kailasa in the Himalayas, and we will see that Shiva is not there. What does that tell us? Well, either Shiva went on a walk, and we can't find Shiva there at the time. She's somewhere else. Or he. I don't know if Shiva is a male or female. I'm pretty sure Shiva is a female, though. Or Shiva just simply does not exist. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be offensive. I don't mean to be rude in this regard. But let's face it, you can disprove the existence of certain gods just simply through a scientific method. And this isn't necessarily the scientific method, this is just common sense. I mean, just go to point A, go to point B. You won't find them there. What is the logical conclusion? Well, they just simply do not exist. Period. Now, with the biblical God. Why can we not prove or disprove the biblical God? Well, there is some difficulties here. First of all, I'm sorry, I'm going off from the outline here. I'm trying to stay true to what I have written here, so I have a tendency to go way off topic. I apologize for that. One, the biblical God is not a part of creation. Because the biblical God is not a part of creation, you can't really judge him by natural standards. You cannot say, oh, the biblical God resides here, or the biblical God resides there. Now, I will say, inside of the Bible, they had a tent for him back when they were traveling throughout the desert, and that was called the tabernacle. Now, mind you, they also realized that God did not simply dwell inside of that tent, or tabernacle, as it was called. That God was everywhere, but that was a place where they could meet with him personally and speak with him. Certain people, like Moses at least, could do such. And then another point, God is purely supernatural. He cannot be empirically measured. Well, if you're supernatural, then you're not subject to the laws of nature. You're above the laws of nature. Matter of fact, that's what super means, above, and natural, above the natural world. And because of that, he cannot be confined, he cannot be measured. I heard a story about this, I don't know if it's true or not, about this professor. I'm not going to go through the whole story, who claimed that, hey, if I drop this piece of chalk and it hits the ground, that there is no God, okay? Because God isn't going to stop me from doing this, and he wouldn't want his name to be blasphemed for the sake that, hey, if this piece of chalk hits the ground and breaks, and I'm saying that if it hits the ground and breaks, then there is no God, then then God wouldn't want his name to be blasphemed, so it hits the ground and breaks, then clearly there is no God. Well, that's a very fallacious and stupid test, and ultimately the story has kind of a comical ending because, well, I'm sure you've probably heard it. But God is, if he's supernatural, then why does he have to listen to human beings? Why does he have to listen to our demands on, hey, God, if you exist, and if I spill a gallon of water on the floor, you will stop the water from hitting the floor so that I can know that you truly exist. Who are you to tell God what he can and can't do and how to prove himself? That is something we see in the gospel time and time again. The Pharisees try to say, hey, if you truly are the Son of God, then you must perform some miraculous sign right here. And Jesus would be like, didn't you see me heal that guy's arm? Didn't you see me multiply the loaves of bread? Didn't you see me walk on water? Didn't you see me do all these incredible things? And you're asking me to do one more thing for you at your command to prove that I am the Son of God. Really? Okay. Why is this not a problem for science or creationists, that we cannot prove or disprove God? One, God declares his eternal supernatural existence by calling himself I am. This is found in the book of Exodus when Moses asks God who it is that he's supposed to tell the Israelites gave him the message he's giving them. God simply said to them, tell them I am sent this message. Well, what does the title I am convey? The title I am conveys that he is not, it's not that God was, it's not that God is going to be. It doesn't mean that he even just is. I mean, well, it's kind of stupid that I just said that. It actually means that God just is. That he simply has always existed. He's not confined by time. That he has been there before the beginning and he's going to be there after the end. And so God is declaring his supernatural existence and his eternality in that respect. The biblical writers of the New Testament were aware of God's separateness from nature. They do this in many different ways. In the book of Romans, I think they do an excellent job at expressing God's separateness from nature. It says that, in fact, it even says that instead of worshiping the Creator, people started worshiping the created things, the animals, the birds, all the living things opposed to the Creator. Not just the living things. I mean, it's, we know that people in the past have worshipped the sun, they've worshipped the moon, they've worshipped the lightning, they've worshipped all sorts of natural phenomenon. God declares his supernatural existence, and the people who wrote the New Testament were very aware of God's separateness from nature, which is why Jesus himself was a very incredible phenomenon, anomaly, whatever you want to call it, to the universe, because that was God embodied in flesh. Point number 3 for that point. A supernatural God can only be known through special revelation. Why is that? Because God's separate from the rest of creation. And not only that, God is holy. He's without sin. He cannot mingle with the darkness. And so the only way that mankind can know anything about God is if God, the transcendent, supernatural God, reveals himself directly to us through some means of revelation. I and many other Christians will tell you that one form of special revelation that's available for everybody to be able to examine is the Bible. It's a very special book. Dates back thousands of years, and despite what people say, oh, it's been copied over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and there's all sorts of changes, all sorts of editions, all sorts of versions. Trust me, I've studied it. I know the history behind the Bible, and copies of the Bible that date back thousands of years are consistent with the translations we have today. That is miraculous. That is incredible. That is, I would say, supernatural preservation of this document right here. Yes, we don't have the original documents, but according to, as far as what I know, Scripture says the original documents of the first 5 books of the Bible, perhaps something along those lines, at least the 10 Commandments, were placed inside of an ark, being a box that the Israelites had to carry around, that has been missing for the longest time. Ever since the prophet Jeremiah's day, the ark has been missing, and because of that, I don't know that we will ever find those original documents per se. There's more to it than that. In fact, I think there's different ideas on what exactly was inside of the ark. Some people will say that it was the entire entire Old Testament law, and other people will just say it's the 10 Commandments, the original 10 Commandments that were written. I can't remember for sure. I just know that if you want to go back to the originals, you're going to have a hard time finding them. That's the point I'm making right there. Okay. Like I said, I tend to get on rabbit trails without my outline here. Okay. Problems with the intelligent design movement. The intelligent design movement more or less says that we can know through nature that there is a God. Well, that's great, but even it doesn't not that there's a God, but there's a designer. And that's great, but who is this designer? Is it an alien? Is it a higher form of human? Is it an animal? Is it a single cell? What is the designer? How do we define the designer? Is it the universe itself? There's no way to know what this designer is. If you watched the movie Expelled, this movie is not a creationist movie. It's by Ben Stein, and it's actually an intelligent design movie. By the way, great movie. I love it. I think that Ben Stein does a great job in this movie at exposing, for lack of a better way to put it, the bigotry inside of the education system, in the collegiate system, towards teachers that merely mention intelligent design. I mean, who would think that you'd get in trouble for simply mentioning the possibility of intelligent design? That's kind of horrendous, I think. But one of the things that he says towards the end of the movie is the reason why we should be allowed to pursue intelligent design is because we might even find a way to one day communicate with God. Ben, no disrespect, man. I can communicate with God right now. It's called prayer. Okay, and it's something that is made very clear inside of the Bible, that you can pray to God, and He hears your prayers. You can read Scripture, and God's communicating to you. Matter of fact, God communicates to you through Spirit as well. So that's one of those sort of absurd points I think that he makes in there. One of the other problems I find with the intelligent design movement is that it concedes to lots of the evolutionary points. You know, that evolution is real, the universe is billions of years old. They believe in sort of more of a theistic evolution type of model, I think, than what they do, you know, what the Bible has to say about how life came into existence and everything. And I'm not saying we should simply say, okay, well, it says that God created the animals, the plants, and the fish, and all that, and just leave it at that, that we shouldn't try to find the components of them. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just simply saying that we know where life came from. Not that we should stop our pursuit of knowledge, but that we know where life came from according to what the Bible said. God created it in the beginning. It's very clear. Okay. So, given this, that we cannot prove or disprove the existence of God, the biblical God, what is the basis then for creationism really? The idea that there is a God, that it is the biblical God even. Well, it goes back to a man named Jesus who was born about 2,000 years ago. He claimed to be God. His dead body mysteriously disappeared, and a lot of people claim to see his resurrected body. Many people believed back then that Jesus was the Messiah that was prophesied in the Old Testament long before his existence. And the belief in Jesus as Messiah and God validates any belief consistent with Scripture and contrary to worldly systems. That would include false scientific systems such as the Big Bang and the theory of evolution. When I say the theory of evolution, I do have to be careful because I don't disagree with the idea of natural selection. I just disagree with Darwin's extrapolation on natural selection, namely macroevolution, which I don't think is a word that he coined, but that arose later as we started to dive deeper into the theory of evolution itself. Going back to the chain of thought that I had before, how we can disprove the gods of other religions, I'm going to apply that same logic to Jesus himself. So we can't find Zeus on Mount Olympus, we can't find Thor in Asgard, and we can't find Shiva in Mount Colossi, or however it's pronounced, in the Himalayas. Okay, well, there's one location that we know where Jesus absolutely was at the end of his life, so to speak, and that was in his tomb in Jerusalem. Well, guess what? We go to the tomb in Jerusalem, and guess who's not there? Jesus. Well, I think that that's pretty good proof that if Jesus is not in his tomb, that means that Jesus is either real or something very bizarre happened after his death. I'll leave you with that thought. Feel free to post comments, and God bless you all.